It was a single sentence, spoken more than 3 decades ago. Out of these troubled times, a new world order can emerge. For many, it passed as a promise of stability. For others, it carried the weight of a warning, a glimpse into plans that were never meant to be spoken aloud. Perhaps it was not a prophecy at all, but a quiet confession. The phrase has lived on, echoing through speeches, debates, and conspiracies. It has been interpreted as vision, as threat, and as inevitability. But what does it truly mean? Tonight, we are not here to prove a theory or dismantle a belief. We are here to ask questions, to trace the patterns of influence, to examine the moments when private conversations in hidden rooms seem to foreshadow public events felt across the world. From the white peaks of Davos, to the guarded halls of Bilderberg, to the financial institutions that sit at the heart of the IMF and the BIS, this is where whispers of a hidden elite are said to take shape, quietly directing the rhythm of global power. Picture a small ski town in the Swiss Alps. For most of the year, it is quiet, remote, almost forgotten. But for 1 week every January, the silence is replaced by a murmur that grows into a roar. The town of Davos becomes the meeting ground of presidents, prime ministers, CEOs, technocrats, activists, and billionaires. The World Economic Forum, founded in 1971 and by Klaus Schwab, what began as a modest gathering of executives has grown into a summit of over 3,000 people. A summit where conversations do not merely describe the present, they outline what the future should look like. Davos is not a parliament. It cannot pass laws. It cannot enforce treaties. But it possesses something more subtle and perhaps more powerful: the ability to set the agenda, to frame what counts as urgent, to declare what is possible, and to make certain outcomes feel inevitable. Consider the phrase "the Fourth Industrial Revolution." It was born on the Davos stage, repeated in panels, amplified in white papers. Within years, it appeared in policy documents across nations and even within United Nations reports. Or think of ESG investing, once a niche concept, whispered in specialist circles. After Davos, it entered the mainstream. Regulations followed, billions of dollars shifted, and companies across the world recalibrated their priorities. And then, the debate on artificial intelligence. Long before parliaments took notice, Davos hosted discussions on ethics and governance. Today we see international frameworks taking shape, frameworks that trace their roots back to conversations on those alpine stages. Is this mere coincidence, or is it alignment? Do world leaders leave Davos inspired or instructed? The truth of Davos may not lie in legislation or enforcement. Its influence lies in something less visible, but no less real: the rehearsal of tomorrow's headlines. If Davos is the stage, then Bilderberg is the back room. The Bilderberg meeting began in 1954. Each year, about 120 guests are invited: politicians, bankers, military officials, media owners, all gathered under one rule: nothing leaves the room, no recordings, no transcripts, no official press. The topics sound broad, almost deliberately vague: geopolitics, technology, energy, finance. But history forces us to ask questions. In the 1990s, when European integration was still a fragile idea, Bilderberg attendees were already debating its shape. Within a decade, the euro was reality. In the early 2000s, cybersecurity and surveillance appeared on the agenda. Not long after, governments across the world expanded surveillance laws and programs at unprecedented scale. Coincidence or continuity? Supporters argue that these are simply conversations, informal exchanges between people in positions of influence. But skeptics counter: if it is harmless dialogue, why such secrecy? Why the need for silence, for locked doors, for rules against disclosure? The list of names only deepens suspicion. Henry Kissinger, Angela Merkel, Bill Clinton, Jeff Bezos, Eric Schmidt, Christine Lagarde. Individuals who command extraordinary political, financial, and cultural influence. Secrecy does not prove conspiracy, but secrecy always ensures suspicion. And suspicion is enough to keep Bilderberg alive in the imagination. Forever a shadowed circle, forever a question mark on the margins of power. Unlike Davos or Bilderberg, the IMF and the BIS are not forums. They are institutions, and institutions carry weight. The International Monetary Fund lends money to nations in crisis, but every loan comes with conditions: austerity, privatization, deregulation, structural reform. For some, these are lifelines. For others, they are shackles. Ask Greece in 2010, when pensions were cut and unemployment soared. Ask Argentina in 2001, when debt restructuring ignited protests across the streets of Buenos Aires. Ask Thailand in 1997, when structural reforms reshaped the nation in the wake of the Asian financial crisis. Each bailout saved markets. But each bailout also left scars that still define politics and society today. Then there is the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, the quiet giant of global finance. Based in Basel, Switzerland, it calls itself the central bank of central banks. Its reports may read like technical notes, but when it speaks, markets shift. When it warns, central banks listen. In 2025, the BIS issued a caution about synchronized tightening. Within weeks, multiple nations raised their interest rates. Coincidence or coordination? The paradox is hard to ignore. Everything is published. The reports are public. The statements are available to all. And yet, the influence they wield remains invisible, irresistible, undeniable. History is not only written in speeches, it is also written in crises. Moments where official narratives and hidden suspicions collide. Take the 2008 financial collapse. Markets unraveled, banks crumbled, and trillions of dollars vanished almost overnight. Governments moved swiftly, not to rescue families or small businesses first, but to stabilize the financial giants. To some, this was negligence, regulators asleep at the wheel. To others, it looked like something more deliberate. A crisis that opened the door to unprecedented bailouts, emergency powers, and a new level of centralization in finance. Was it chaos? Or was it choreography? Now consider the war in Ukraine. It was framed as a war of sovereignty, a struggle over borders and independence. But many asked another question. Was it also an economic war? A chance to rewire Europe's dependence on Russian energy, a chance to draw Europe closer to the United States, a chance to expand NATO's footprint and weaken Moscow's hold on its neighbors. On the surface, it was about territory. Beneath the surface, it looked like markets and alliances being realigned. By 2025, as tariffs on China and India escalated, the pattern seemed to widen. Trade wars, shooting wars, financial wars, different battlefields, but perhaps one single struggle for dominance in a changing order. Then there are central bank digital currencies. For technocrats, they are the natural evolution of money, faster, cheaper, more efficient. But for critics, they are instruments of control. Within months of discussion at Davos and pilot projects launched by the BIS, more than 60 countries announced trials. Too fast, some argued, far too synchronized. Was this genuine innovation, or was it coordination? A move toward a system where money itself becomes programmable? And finally, artificial intelligence. Not just the latest technology, but the latest lever of power. Algorithms that already trade billions each day on global markets. Systems that can predict and perhaps even manipulate human behavior. By 2025, reports surfaced of AI being tested for influence operations, shaping opinion online, nudging public sentiment, and guiding collective behavior. If true, AI is no longer just a tool. It is an invisible hand, one capable of engineering consent itself. But step back for a moment. The critics themselves have critics. The world is messy, chaotic, divided. The United States and China are locked in constant rivalry. Russia and Europe move on separate paths. If there is truly a single hidden cabal pulling the strings, then it is doing a remarkably poor job at coordination. Yes, Davos sets themes, but themes are not laws. Yes, Bilderberg is secret, but secrecy by itself does not equal control. And yes, the IMF and BIS are powerful. But their programs fail as often as they succeed, and failures do not look like master plans. Perhaps the elites are not puppet masters at all. Perhaps they are improvisers, navigating storms rather than creating them, responding to crises rather than engineering them, taking advantage of opportunities rather than scripting every turn of history. Maybe the truth is simpler. They are not gods, they are not demons. They are people, powerful, yes, but also flawed, opportunistic, and sometimes undeniably wrong. So where does this leave us? From Davos to Bilderberg, from the IMF to the BIS, a pattern emerges, not always clear, not always deliberate, but undeniable. Influence, alignment, consensus. Ideas that begin in private conversations echo outward, shaping policies, markets, and even public opinion. Is that conspiracy? Or is it simply the way power works? Perhaps the New World Order is not a single plan at all. Perhaps it is a process where elites, consciously or unconsciously, set the rhythm, and the rest of the world, knowingly or not, moves to the beat. In the end, three possibilities remain. First, conspiracy, that elites truly coordinate crises and policies, turning chaos into choreography. Second, consensus, that they do not need to conspire because their interests already align. And third, chaos, that the world spins beyond control and even the powerful are left reacting, improvising, holding on. The truth may be some mixture of all three, but one fact is certain. Whether through secrecy, through influence, or through shared consensus, the hidden elites shape the forces that shape us all. And in that quiet realization, the question lingers. Do we live in a world guided by design, or do we live in a world guided only by power itself?